Hi, Paul Pearson here. Continuing on with a series of articles from my 1996 book titled Letters to the Editor, A Christian View. This offering is the second installment of an article I titled The Fall of Evolution, and I'll begin to read. The geological column is the evolutionist's biggest ruse, and it will surprise many that nowhere on Earth does such a column exist, complete, naturally, or in order. Pointed this out drives geologists crazy, and they come out with statements such as, we haven't done enough geological digs to find a complete column, or they blame it on the imperfection of the fossil record. It seems the Earth itself is at fault for not supporting their suppositions. Having to piece together and, where necessary, adjust the order of the various layers of sediments with their identifying life forms has been quite puzzling, even to the most hardened evolutionists. Because fossils are being found in the same sediments or below that of their supposed evolutionary ancestors. And geologists have been at a loss to explain why thousands of square miles of sediments are found topsy turvy from the way they believe it should have been laid down sequentially over vast amounts of time. Evolutionists are caught in a trap of having to classify the age of the rocks by the life found in them, even when it seems incredulous in their natural order of things to do so. Evolutionary thinking primarily adheres to the relatively quiet and uniform laying down of the different rock sediments of the Earth crust over an extremely long time frame, while the creationist believes in the cataclysmic formation of these layers of sediments over a relatively short period of time. The evidence is stronger for the latter and more closely complements the date geologists and others are finding by digging into the past. And it is also confirmed by current observations of the devastating changes to our Earth procured by nature's fury. As a matter of fact, the creationist worldwide flood scenario is most helpful in explaining the fossilized remains of huge amounts of marine life with tails bent right around to the head, spines protruding, and fins fully extended, which indicates a quick, violent end. While up in the Arctic, herds of mammoths are entombed in their frozen graves right in the act of feeding. Also, fossilized marine life is being discovered encased in the rocks on mountaintops. And what's more incredible, forces like floodwaters, volcanoes, and other disasters are presently being observed to produce amazing changes in the Earth's topography in a matter of hours or a few days. These kinds of changes to the Earth were previously thought to have taken many thousands and even hundreds of thousands of years. All this and more giving credence to what the Bible has said all along about a catastrophic worldwide flood that destroys most everything, reshapes the landscape, and in the process into much of life, save the animals and the people preserved on the ark. From what information the Bible gives about this flood, creationists have theorized that there may have been a canopy of water which encircled the earth. This water vapor would have been a marvelous protection from the harmful rays of the sun and would have supported tremendously a much longer life cycle. During this time in Earth's history, it is thought there was a much more uniform climate and greater land surface, lush vegetation, and abundant life of every kind. When at the beginning of the flood this envelope was caused to fall, there was a torrential rain which lasted some 40 days, and from under the earth waters also came gushing up to join in the vast accumulation until every mountain was submerged under the floodwaters. When the waters began to dissipate, dry land appeared gradually after about a year, but it is theorized by creationists that it had now become a much harsher world, especially in the north and south poles, where frigid temperatures now rule. Also, during the course of this cataclysmic flood, the various sediments were laid down as would be expected. Smaller and less complicated life were interned primarily in the bottom layers, and then in each succeeding layer, the life more able to make an effort of escape became entombed until finally the animals most able to find ways and means to delay their inevitable demise was encased primarily in the upper stratum. Of course, man would have been the most resourceful in this regard, and relatively speaking, there is much less evidence of his remains than some other life, primarily because he was smart enough to climb to higher ground, and when he did succumb, his remains were exposed to the elements and were less likely to survive as fossilized remains. Because of a much more favorable climate before the flood, creationists have suggested a tremendous abundance of plant and animal and marine life. And when the sediments were laid down during the flood, and as the waters began to dissipate, these life forms were buried en masse. It is in various areas of the globe, coal and oil deposits were formed from plant and animal remains in a relatively short span of time under tremendous pressure. Of course, these deposits are identifiable today with the telltale signs of fossilized plant and marine animal remnants testifying to their catastrophic demise. The creation model does not answer every question, but has much less need of the manipulation that so marks the evolutionary model. One of the most interesting studies of the past is how man came into being. Fascinating conjecture has been put forward as undeniable fact by evolutionists attempting to outline man's development to his present state, which, by the way, seems to be as far as he can go on the evolutionary climb. They have tenaciously held to the theory that ape like creatures were man's long ago ancestors. At some point in the distant past, an unknown creature developed into various branches of the monkey and ape families, and then over vast amounts of time into a specific form as it relates to man's development. A branch they identify as hominids, which over much more time slowly developed it into what man is today. All this happening over millions and millions of years to make it more palatable to the human mind. It seems time is the great miracle worker for the imaginings of men. The truth, according to the creationist, is much less confusing and predicts that each supposed ancestor of man will be proved false. Ape, monkeys, and human remains are identifiably just that and that alone. Fully human remains have been found in the same or lower sediments as their supposed ancestors, which effectively squashes any hope of an evolutionary link between them. The Bible has laid to rest any and all claims of a developing man coming out of the animal kingdom. It has done this by proclaiming within the first few pages that man was formed unique and complete by the loving and all powerful Creator. The time evolutionists need for their theory to work must be deemed incredulous to those who examine this aspect alone. It has become necessary for scientists and biologists of evolutionary bent to declare these vast amounts of time in order for their theories to work. But the telltale signs of what should be evident on this earth, and indeed in all that we survey above the earth, in no way supports the billions or even millions of years which they themselves say is necessary. Rather, it supports a relatively young universe and a correspondingly young earth. Let us first look at the evidence found within our earth. There should, in fact, be much more signs of fossil remains if the time factor of the evolutionists is accurate. Just imagine hundreds of thousands and even millions of years of evolving and developing life, dying and being returned back into the earth. This is a staggering and can in no way be reconciled to what the earth is revealing to us in geology and in archaeology. By a mathematical equation, we can see the remains from such an explanation of developing life would be more than all the earth could contain. Looking at the present population of man at 5.5 billion and taking into consideration the time it should take for our population to reach the figure works out marvelously well as to the dates the Bible has represented in their chronology of the generations after the flood, starting with Noah and the 7 members of his family. Even taking into consideration wars and plagues and natural disasters, the present population is wonderfully in agreement with the Bible's 6,000-year history of man. Evolutionists point to the Grand Canyon and other marvels of nature as proof positive of the vast amounts of time necessary for their formation. But incredible changes in topography occur within a matter of hours, days, or weeks as the forces of the earth are unleashed. Just look at the tremendous valley created from the volcanic eruption in Washington gives cause to really question the truth of the evolutionary time factor for Earth change. Another phenomenon that puzzles scientists is the deterioration of the Earth's magnetic field, which has been measured and charted over a substantial period of Earth's history. All things being equal and reversing this process back to what it may have been like on the Earth even 12,000 years ago, we find a possible magnetic field roughly equivalent to that of a star. No life could possibly develop or survive in such circumstance. Examining the evidence that space exploration has is providing uh, another science that is continually bringing surprising answers, which are in turn leading to more and more questions. Our moon was theorized by many scientists to have a dust coating of many feet, and after the moon landing, many were shocked at the small amount of dust present on its surface. This has led to speculation that the moon is not merely so ancient as astronomers are wont to believe. Also, the chemical makeup of the moon rock suggests a very different origin and formation than that of the Earth. Then there are the vast amounts of dust particles floating around in our solar system. These particles, by all known laws, should have either been pushed off to the outer limits of our solar system or sucked into the magnetic field of the sun and its surrounding planets in about 100,000 years or so. But the dust is still out there, and this flies in the face of the supposed millions and even billions of years of existence, which has been suggested as the age of our solar system. Another interesting phenomenon is the comets that speed past our Earth from time to time like clockwork. It is theorized these ice rocks should dissipate in about 10,000 years or so, and yet they are still traveling their courses supposedly billions of years after formation. How can this be unless we are in a much younger universe than previously believed? Peering through the tremendously powerful telescopes here on Earth, along with the aid of computer enhancements and the clear view of the heavens from the Hubble telescope, astronomers are continually being amazed at what they find. One particular team of scientists have come to the conclusion that the universe is much younger than previously thought. This has led to a confusing set of assumptions that have gone so far as to suggest the universe is younger than the stars it contains. Taking into consideration all that can reasonably be construed about our Earth's majesty and the glory of the heavens, we are left with these clearly identifiable foundations. There is a God. He is revealed marvelously in the Bible as Creator, Redeemer, and Comforter. But beyond God, no one can go. And I'll end yours in Christ, Paul. Um, I'm not sure what we'll go into next time in our topic, but I just wanted to mention this was I wrote this way back in 1996, and so there are some things that I would say may be not exactly according to according to what scientists are finding out now in 2022. But I did produce a series of broadcasts a while back, and you can look them up, and it's called Biblical Creation versus Evolution, that gives a little more sense of what we creationists believe at this present time. And I thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next time, God willing. Bye for now.